The first mode of attack against us was firefighters using 4 of their deluge hoses, their water cannons, on us. They aimed 4 water cannons at our home, and they were turned on full force. And according to the firefighters, each hose emits 10,000 pounds of water pressure per minute. And they have 4 of them, so that's 40,000 pounds of water pressure per minute. And they aimed those 4 hoses at our home for the longest time. I cannot tell you how specifically how long, but it was a long time. We were all in the basement, and the water was just pouring down on us from the upper floors, just pouring down. Now, mind you, this was when there was no fire at all. They didn't have a problem using water against us, pumping thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of water into our home. After they, I guess, realized that that was not flushing us out, the cops decided that they wanted to breach 3-inch holes in the party walls of our house, the walls that connected each house, because Osage Avenue was a street of row houses. Each house was connected. So they went in the houses on either side of us and said they wanted to blow 3-inch holes in the wall to insert tear gas. This was the first use of explosives. They did not just blow 3-inch holes in the walls. They blew off the whole front porch of our house. And then they started pumping, tear gas into the house. Again, we were in the basement. And when that failed, to flush us out, the tear gas failed to flush us out, then they opened fire. According to their admissions, they shot at least 10,000 rounds of bullets in on us. And if they admit to 10,000, you can probably double that. They used up all the ammunition they had out there. They had to send to the armory for more ammunition. And they had 50 caliber machine guns, M60 automatic rifles. They had 9mm Uzis. They had M16s. They had sniper rifles with silencers on them. And that's something else I'm still trying to figure out. Why did they need silencers? Silencers are the weapon of an assassin. Why did they need silencers? Why would they care about being heard shooting if they were just doing their job? So they had all these weapons. They had a 20mm armor-piercing anti-tank gun out there. They had the makings of a bomb, which they brought there. They didn't have to go send for it. They had it out there with them, the C4. A military explosive that no municipal police department has. They got it from the FBI, from Michael Macy's, So they shot all these rounds of ammunition in on us. And when that failed to flush anybody out, then they started making their bomb of C4, and not just one, but 2 bombs, because they wanted a backup bomb. And they got a state police helicopter flown by state troopers, Pennsylvania state troopers, and without any announcement, any warning, anything, they flew over our home and dropped the bomb on the roof of our home. Now, we're all in the basement, and, there was a lull between the shooting and the time they dropped the bomb. We didn't know what was going on. We were just maintaining our position. And they dropped the bomb, and we didn't know specifically that it was a bomb. We heard the explosion, and the house shook. But, it didn't occur to us that they had actually dropped a bomb. But pretty quickly, didn't take long, it got smokier and smokier in the basement. And at first we thought it was the tear gas, but as it got thicker, it was becoming clear that this was something else happening here. This wasn't just tear gas. And it started getting hot in there. It started getting really hot. And then we could hear like crackling. And we looked and we could see the trees outside of our home on fire. So we knew that the house was on fire at that point. And we immediately tried to get our children, our animals, ourselves out of that burning building. We were hollering that we were coming out. The kids were hollering that they were coming out. But the instant that we could be seen coming from, the house, the instant we could be seen by cops, they immediately started shooting, trying to prevent anybody from, coming out of that house. We were forced back in at least twice that I clearly, recollect. At least twice. And then, like the third time, I believe it was, it's like you're in a position where you're either going to choke to death and burn alive, or you could, possibly be shot to death. So we tried, to get out again. And at that point, I was successful, and I was able to get a little boy, Birdie, out. We are the only two survivors. Everybody else was right behind us, but, apparently didn't make it out, or made it out and were shot and somehow got back into the building, because people were later found, bodies were later found inside the house, but they were found to have bullet fragments in them. Bullet fragments from bullets matching what the cops were using that day. But, till this day, not one single official has ever been held accountable for the 11 deaths and numerous deaths of our animals that day. 5 babies and 6 adults, and again, numerous animals were murdered that day, burned alive, and shot that day. Nobody has ever been held accountable. And with that single act, not to mention numerous others, this government lost all credibility. All of the charges listed in the warrants that the cops came out there for were dismissed as having no basis to them, no foundation. I actually went to trial on charges that they put on me as a result of what happened after they came out there. They bombed my home and then charged me with everything that they did: possession of explosives, arson, what do they call that? Recklessly endangering, riot, conspiracy, assault, simple and aggravated assault. All these charges, everything that they did, they charged me with. I went to trial, and some of the charges were dismissed. Other charges I was acquitted of, and I was finally convicted of riot and conspiracy, but conspiracy merged with riot, so it was one charge, basically, riot. And I was sentenced to 16 months to 7 years in prison. When my 16 months was up, I was interviewed by the parole board, and they told me that they were willing to parole me under one condition. They call a special condition of parole, that I agreed to have absolutely no contact with any moved person at all. Basically, that I completely, disassociate myself from move. And they told several of my sisters and brothers who became eligible for parole the same thing. None of us would agree to that, ever. And we didn't. And therefore, most of us, including myself, maxed out. I did the whole 7 years. Several of my other sisters maxed out on their sentences until the parole board was under so much pressure. They finally start paroling, moved people without that stipulation.